Welcome to another episode of We Are Carbon. I'm Helen Fisher and I'm joined by Jackson Buzingo, an advocate for regenerative agriculture in Tanzania. So our lives are busy and we get used to hurrying around a shop, grabbing food off a shelf. So there's no wonder that for the most part, people have little concern for the process of growing that food or worrying if it's going to always be available. But for many people around the world, this simply isn't the case. In climates that are less stable, food shortages can't be ignored. And in these regions, people's livelihoods are often dependent upon the output of the land too. Climate change holds such different meaning for all of us. Some debate if it's a myth, whereas for people like Jackson in East Africa, extreme responses from the land, such as drought, floods and failed crops, which have become rapidly worse in recent years, means there's a very real issue right now. I'm delighted that I was able to connect with Jackson. His story inspires us to learn from those who are already having to find their way through these challenges. And I think no matter where we are in the world, it highlights what is becoming an undeniable connection between the way that we treat our soil and the resilience that we have within our food supplies. It's enormously heartening too, to hear the motivation that Jackson has to make change for his community. It starts with poverty, but you'll hear the absolute joy in his voice as he explains how re-educating farmers on the approaches that they take to the land is building an abundant future for those around him. I hope you'll enjoy listening, and if you'd like to follow along with everything from We Are Carbon, be sure to look us up on Instagram at wearecarbon.earth. Right, let's get stuck in. Hello Jackson, thank you ever so much for joining me today. Really appreciate you coming to share your story, a very exciting story regarding regenerative agriculture in your own local community in Tanzania. So before we talk about the work that you're doing at the moment, could you give us a little bit of background about yourself and your community?
Yeah, my name is Jackson Buzingo. I am a Tanzanian youth based in a Kigoma region in Western Tanzania. And I was born in 1980s and in a small district called the Kasulu district with the two smallholder farmers. These are my parents. So in my early years of childhood, I got to engage with the farming practices that my family and my parents were working with. So during weekends, while I started the school, then I was accompanied with my parents to go for the cultivation in the cultivation season. And when we reached the time for harvest, we went also together. But there was a tremendous change year to year because in my early years, my family didn't have also enough income to sustain for the family. So they didn't use the chemical fertilizers because they had no money to buy chemical fertilizers. So what they used to cultivate the soil, the land, the plot of land that we have, without any input of chemical within the soil. And we were lucky to God because we got some harvest after the cultivation. But as time goes on, the situation was very worse because the plot of land where we used to cultivate, the production was very little. And in that year, I do remember very well, we had a very huge rain, and the huge rain swept all away of our crops there, and the situation was very bad. And after that, we came back home very sad. My parents told me that since you are the firstborn, and that you are the elder one with your young brothers and sisters, so you have to find out how we can get out of this situation right now. So what I did, I started to look around to some of the places where we can have some food. So I went in one of the rich family to see in their dumps if there is any food. So I grabbed the food there. It was already expired, but it was dumped within the dump. Then I took that food, and then I brought back to home, and then I gave it to my mother, and then she filtered it so that we can use it for cooking what we call gari. This is a stiff porridge, as I can say. So the situation from that moment changed my mind that the situation is going to be bad. So I started looking and digging deep about what is the reasons and the main challenges and problems that are facing my local communities here in agriculture. I found that the soil infertility is a great problem and a great challenge that my community is facing. Because when I tracing back in earlier years, the local communities didn't use chemical fertilizers. But right now, there is the overuse of chemical fertilizers. But in the real situation, even right now, after those more than 10 years ago, the situation is more worse than that period, because the soil has been depleted and it has nothing to give. It has exhausted at all. So that is why I now started to think how I can assist my community very well. So in Tanzania, it is very difficult to assist the communities, even if it's your local community, without having an organization. Then I started my own movement, but I didn't have anyone to assist me. So I started to post my activities on LinkedIn, and then there's two Swedish people who saw my profile there, and then they started to reach me out. And these are the ones who were having the vision to establish one more organization where I am being attached with. So from that moment, it was 2017 when I got connected with them. Then they told me that we would like to assist developing countries. So since based on your profile and based on what you have already doing, we are very keen and very touched by your actions. So we want to assist you to find your dream come into reality. Then we have a very long communication and a conversation on how we can register organization. And then it was 2019 on February, we got registered as a non-profit organization. So that was a very huge story and a very long story that I encountered. But luck to God that I got to the point where my dream was coming into reality.
Fantastic. That's a really lovely story. So you have seen within your local community the degrading of the land over a very, very quick time.
Sure, because the chemical input has been the main source for that. Because my community, what they usually burn all waste materials from the farms every year. They keep burning. So the soil is being depleted because of the situation. But so far, the main reason of my community suffering in agriculture is the chemical fertilizers, chemical pesticides are the ones that are killing our soil. Most of the crops that are being grown here, maize and beans, millet, and others. But as time goes on, even these crops that are normal are being used here for cultivation. Chemical fertilizers and chemical input has been used, but most of the farmers are not able to buy fertilizers because they are being sold in a very high price. So most of the farmers don't afford to buy fertilizers. So based on the reality that their soil also has been depleted. So most of the farmers are failing to buy fertilizers. Then they decide to grow crops without using chemicals, and the soil. Since the soil has nothing to give, then their crops and the energy, that is a wasted energy because they cultivate the soil, they grow crops, but and in the harvest they get nothing. So the chemical fertilizers is making them to suffer even in more extreme poverty.
Yeah, and this is a community where a huge percentage of the people are dependent upon the land for their incomes.
Absolutely, more than 80%.
More than 80%, yeah. So this is
Yeah.
very, very impactful. And for yourself, it was a situation that you just couldn't ignore because of how important and significant this was. So in terms of the tie to the land, this wasn't just about food production. This is about poverty in general and the declining situation regarding that.
Yeah, in Tanzania, particularly even in my community, I was also making a follow-up on the climate crisis that are happening all over the world. I just see reflected in my community. We don't have companies. We don't have very high tech in farming and other fields. But the reality here in my community is poverty, and the poverty is well associated with the chemical fertilizers and the climate change. So climate change as a main crisis due to the use of chemical fertilizers has led to the climate crisis here in my community. So even in my community, I don't tell the farmers, I don't tell the people about the green gas emissions, because if I can tell them, they don't know about that. But what I can tell them, and in order them to understand me very well, I told them about the impacts of the chemical fertilizers to their health, as well to their soil, to the soil, as well as for the planet ecosystem balance.
Yeah, so you noticed the ecosystem was all tied in together with this whole, the way that you're farming the land, the inputs that are being put in there. And I suppose that must also extend out into areas where trees are being cut, and it's just overall, it's depleting the land as opposed to supporting it. So in that regard, there's a huge situation globally. It's something that is incredibly at your feet there in Tanzania, because I suppose the soils, the hot temperatures and the inputs, it's very alarming the rate that you've seen the change. But this is actually a theme that is happening globally. And we're noticing that the soils are degrading, and then it ties in with the water cycle too. Have you noticed a change with regards to the water and droughts or floods or anything like that where you are?
Sure, I can tell this firsthand because I have witnessed it in my local communities here. We have some of the rivers here in Kasulu district and other regions also. I have already witnessed that. Most of the rivers that has been the cornerstone for the agricultural activities, most of them has now the water quantity has now reduced and it is very low. Particularly in my local community, there was one river which was called the Kasulu River. Kasulu River is no longer there. Kasulu River, it has already dried up. But within 15 years ago, 10 years ago, Kasulu River was active, and Kasulu River was the one who was the one of the river which was assisting the local communities in farming practices. But when I'm talking about that, the Kasulu River it has already extincted. It has gone extinct. So the situation is bad. We have also Bogwe River in Kasulu district, Western Tanzania. The quantity of the water was very high, but right now, if you can go there, you can cry. You can cry a lot because the quantity of the water is astonishing. If you can also step the foot, your feet within the water cannot go very far, even to the above of the toes. So it is very sad to see that. So in the little situation, deforestation has led to that. Or continued human activities in agriculture, particularly primitive farming methods that has been used for the use of chemical fertilizers, and as well as the planting of the trees along the source of river. The trees that are not friendly to the water sources has led to this situation where climate change, climate crisis that has been witnessed in my community for the water issues.
Yeah, so it's very devastating. You've noticed then that this has not just been declining output of crops. Have you had increased failure of crop completely?
Sure.
Yeah, so a huge impact locally. And fortunately, your local community have somebody like yourself, because what you have done over the past couple of years is very inspiring. You've taken a problem, you've witnessed it with your own experience, your own eyes, and you've decided something must be done. So you've mentioned to us already the organisation and the need to work with an organisation in order to make an impact for your local community. So you've started this back in 2017, got involved with One More Salary, and I think that that's something we'll maybe talk about a little later, because I find that a very interesting part of what you're doing. But in terms of you becoming aware something needs to change, we need to change our approach to the land, you have since gone off and done some training, haven't you? What opportunities did you find that were available to teach you about alternative methods to farming?
Yeah, I have found a very good opportunities after formation of the One More Salary. I got very high support from my Swedish colleagues who are based in Stockholm, Sweden. We made a lot of conversation in order to push my activities to the stage whereby my local communities can be assisted. And then back in 2019, on November, we got a support from Tabea Beck from Germany. This is the program director of the International Aid Services, who was very willing also after seeing my activities also working with One More Salary. Then she said that International Aid Services will offer you a small project to do in order to assist your community practice farming that are eco-friendly without the primitive farming practice that they were doing. So this is what I did, and the opportunities came from opportunities one after one, because 2020, I was also very interested with one of the issues that were undertaken in climate change. So I attended the course in a Climate Interactive. Then after attending the course, they gave me the certificate for attending. Then they told me, Jackson, can you do that? And I said that I can do that because while I am training farmers about practicing regenerative agriculture, they also do a great job in carbon sequestration within the soil. So I am also assisting the whole agenda of the world in fighting climate change. Then they say that you have to be our ambassador. Then they selected me to be the ambassador. From that moment, other organizations also that are dealing with the food and agriculture, they saw that you are doing a great job. Then I got connected with them. That's why I can also be featured with other websites that Jackson, you are doing our common mission to save our planet. So you have to be on board also with us.
Fantastic. And when people watch through on this, I'll make sure that we include somewhere underneath or within the video a list of all the different organisations that you have worked with, because I think it's very important to see how these connect in with making real solutions, and people like yourself taking up that opportunity and sharing the knowledge and taking a willingness to learn. So you found that there is a vast amount of information regarding regenerative agriculture that takes an entirely different approach to the soil. What are the main principles, or some of them, as examples that differ in terms of the practice that you're doing?
Okay, for example, in my community, they practice monoculture, and the monoculture is very destructive method of our soil. But in regenerative agriculture, I train them about intercropping and the cover crops in order to assist it and protect the soil. In a primitive method that that my community uses, once they make a harvest, after the harvest they collect all waste products from the crop, the product that they have wasted there. They burn them. But in regenerative farming practices, what I do, I tell them about ensuring that they supply all waste within the farm in order to assist the soil create moisture. Not anything from the soil should be left within the soil to cover the soil, so that the works of the microbes within the soil can be in a very interactive way, because within the soil the nature interacts by itself, and it can work for us if we can invest in and know the value of underneath underneath activities that is taking on there. So there is a difference here that I do after cropping, after making training to the farmers. We practice with them, and I show them how it is very important to prune, particularly for the trees or for all crops that are not needed within the farm. Yeah, this is what I do.
Yeah, so you're adding a lot of matter back into the soil, and you're valuing the soil itself as though it's alive. Fantastic. So there's nothing overly high tech about the operations that you're doing. It's all very much a willingness to learn knowledge and share knowledge. Have you found that the farmers within your local community who are used to doing things a different way, have they been eager to take up the lessons that you've got to teach them?
Yeah, most of the farmers are very keen to learn from my method that I'm telling them. But other farmers are still reluctant, because they believe that chemical farming is the only method to assist them out of poverty, out of food insecurity. So since these are the new initiatives which they have already forgotten, although these methods were available in the early years that indigenous communities use the same method, but they don't care about that. So I have some farmers that very focusing on what I'm telling them, but others they're still reluctant. So it is very I still have a long way to go in order to assist my community very well, because I have some challenges I face when I'm telling people.
Yeah. So there's just I think I've heard this a lot with the regenerative farming. There's a time period between putting things in action and seeing the benefits. And this is where I suppose the continued education, farmers can then see with their own eyes the impact. And that's then the inspiration for them to maybe keep taking it a little bit more seriously and taking up and putting that into action. So I think you're right on track with what you're doing. Have you noticed that there's any resistance with regards to the actions that you're doing that are to regenerate the land? This means a shift in the inputs that you put into the soil. So the chemical fertilizers, you're encouraging people to stop using them. Has that caused any friction with along the lines in terms of the companies that sell them?
Yeah, I have already faced the antagonism with other stakeholders in agriculture. For example, I was invited this year. It was July. I was invited by the director of the National Food Security from the Ministry of Agriculture to attend the youth dialogue that were ongoing food system dialogues that were convened by the United Nations. I was invited to attend there to the dialogue, and one of the issues that I raised there, I sticked on the action track 3, that it was based on nature positive production. And in nature, I insisted that because I know very well in my community they are very well aligned with other issues from action track 1, like action track 2, 4, and 5. But in action track number 3, nature-based solutions, no, they are not full aligned at all. And I told him that in that dialogue that we have to make a transition here. We have to rely on the nature. So chemical fertilizers, pesticides can no longer be promoted here. I was very they were not very impressed with my conversation and my speech there, because what they think that if I can go on with the promoting farmers and go regenerative farming, then in the near future, chemical fertilizers will not be sold. So if they cannot be sold out the chemical fertilizers, then they are going also to lose some of the taxes. So even in the government, there is a slight and I can say hidden antagonism with us who are promoting indigenous methods of cultivation, because they think that we are some sort of labels here. We don't want them to flourish. But what we are doing a very great job to assist our communities. So there's a challenge here, but thanks to God, I am continuing with my fight.
Yeah, so you're training in quite a number of ways. You have trained people within schools, you've trained farmers that are smallholders on their own land. How are you working with other people to do this?
Yeah, I'm working with other people, particularly smallholder farmers, but I have also included district officers who are based in agriculture, community development, agroforestry. I have already also engaged with them and trained them about this method, because they are also the ones who also supervises the farmers. So I thought that it would be great if I can involve them too. So I have a very good connection with them. Even the agriculture senior advisor of the whole regions, Goma regions, and the districts, we have already a very full relationship together with what I'm doing here in my local community. So I am trying my best to reach other people, but so far I'm very more focused with the smallholder farmers, because the smallholder farmers are the ones who feed my community.
So generally, there are many farmers with small plots.
Sure.
That's what you're saying. Yeah. So there's a great number of people, and with regards to the food that you're growing and the smallholders are growing, is that to feed their own families as well?
Sure. The situation is bad here. Yeah, they cultivate and grow the food, which is they use it for selling in order to generate income. They also use it to feed their families. But most of the farmers, due to lack of the capacity, particularly buying fertilizers, that are also very expensive. So most of the farmers, after the harvest, they are running out of money, and they are running out of facilities to assist them for the next cultivation season. We are coming to September and October. So once we are coming there, the farmers, the money that has been generated from their products has already finished, and then they are coming to the new cultivation season. They don't have money to buy fertilizers, and they also facing a huge food insecurity, although they are the ones who produces that food, because they used to sell and they have very minimal food left to feed their families. So most of them, they will start now working for other people in other casual works in order to feed their families until next year, when they make they make also the harvest again. But if the soil, if they will plant without using chemicals, then the situation will be even worse.
Yeah. So they need this education in between to rebuild the soil and make it more productive again.
Sure. And that is what I do. And that is what I want to see very well in my community. That my community can bridge back the future with the soil health. I want to establish more food forest here, because this will build and produces abundance yields that are very essential for food security, to ensure food security, to ensure the fight against climate change, particularly the carbon sequestration in the soil, as well as the poverty reduction. Because in my community, I have to do both.
Yeah, it's all incredibly tied together. You've just mentioned food forests and you mentioned intercropping earlier. Are you introducing a greater variety of crops locally?
Yeah, so I am planning to establish more food forests, because it's also amazing. It's a game changer. And if I can establish syntropic agroforestry in my community, it's also the form of regenerative farming, but this is it's beyond organic, it's beyond sustainable, because it produces abundance. It gives everything that you need within the farm in order to assist our planet, our health, and everything. For example, I can say that in my community, particularly, for example, if I want to assist my farmers fight poverty in my community, syntropic agroforestry or regenerative agroforestry, this is the best method I can use, because it produces abundance. The farmer can be able to get enough yields for the family, enough yields that he or she can sell, enough yields that assists in nourishing the soil. And if he or she can practice syntropic agroforestry, then she will no longer at any rate to buy fertilizers. Because the fertilizer will not be needed out there, because the soil will be healthy, and everything that you put within the soil, it will grow. Because what you have to do is to invest within the nature. So you have to build and create the situation and the condition for the nature to thrive. Then after you have already after doing that, then the nature will work for you. So you have to work for nature, and then nature will work for you, because the nature is very intelligent.
Yes, it sounds very, very beautiful and exciting. Have you got anybody, do you foresee in the future many of the bare fields that are owned by the smallholders, do you see any of those being transformed into these kind of food forests?
Yeah, there are so many areas that smallholder farmers have that are bare that has a bare soil. And because they don't have these skills, so you can find that the bare soil and the bare land that they have, they are not grown any food. They are not growing any crops there. So what I am planning to do, based on the reality that if I can get funding for conducting these projects, because this project needs some funding because they're huge, because I have to buy trees, I have to establish seed beds, I have to buy some seeds in order to demonstrate and also to assist the farmers also to supply those seeds to the farmers, because most of them are suffering with poverty. So in order to assist them, I have to establish some sort of that, so that I can be able to show them firsthand that this is what I mean. When I want to establish food forestry, I mean like this. When you see, when they see also within the bare soil that has been transformed to be food forestry. Yeah.
It's all incredibly inspiring, very inspiring, and I'm absolutely certain that when the more that you engage people with this and are able, in particular, to demonstrate a result, then it's going to keep spreading and keep having a great uptake. So it's very exciting. We mentioned earlier One More Salary, and these are actually an organisation that you've been part of the very beginning of. Is that right? That they got in touch with you because you were showing a interest, you were showing an engagement and fantastic activities locally, and they got in touch with you and said, would you be interested in being involved? So this kind of organisation, they're not government that's supporting you. They're not a mandatory support system, but this is why you're going from step to step, because you're finding that there are organizations that are prepared to provide the training and also the opportunities that you need to get the information. So how do they work? Is it as simple as technology? You've said at the beginning you connected on LinkedIn and were able to get in touch with people in Sweden that saw what you was up to. Do you find that an awful lot of what you're doing in terms of the networking is very simply that kind of technology like LinkedIn?
One More Salary is a main organization that I'm working with, and I'm working with One More Salary on a volunteer basis. I don't have a monthly salary for the organization. I am very impressed and I'm so interested in leading organization, because this is what I want to do in my community. And other organizations that I'm working with, they are very well aligned with our mission. For example, I have a good connection with the global network, but I don't have any activities that I do in the global scale. What I do in my local community. So this is what I think for those also organizations that I'm working with are interconnected, because when I'm talking about food production should be healthy. I was invited to be a guest speaker at one of the organizations, which is called the Tanzania Girl Guide Scouts. This is a sister organization of the World Association of Girls Guide and the Scouts. WAGIS, it's called. Yeah, I was invited there to speak about girl-powered nutrition. So they are promoting about nutrition, and in my speech there, I told them that you have to produce a good nutrition that is much healthier. You have to rely on the nature producing that food. So you cannot escape food production that is well aligned with the regenerative farming and the regenerative agroforestry that can produce abundance nutrition that is very essential for everything, for the nature, for the soil, for the people, and for our planet. So these organizations that I'm working with are interconnected and much well aligned. And most of them of this organization, I was being invited to be part of them. That Jackson, you are doing some amazing job here in Tanzania, and then we wish to have you on board. Then I say no problem. We can work together because I'm also happy to see the challenges that I'm solving here in my community are very well aligned and can impact the whole world and our global challenge. I am also very challenging myself because what I focus even myself is to see that my voice is very well amplified throughout my community, within the government, as well as in the global scale. Then this is why this was the first time when I got an invitation, with a formal letter from the Ministry of Agriculture, inviting me to attend the youth dialogue. That is among the 60 youth within Tanzania that are very well involved with the food and agriculture. I was the one also among these young people who were invited, and I was invited by by the director of the National Food Security, who is a UN official food system dialogue convener that has been appointed by the United Nations as the convener for Tanzania. So it was very first time for me to be invited by the high-ranking official from that position. But I am so happy because my involvement in agriculture and what I am trying to showcase in my community has been amplified even in the national level. So I'm so happy for that.
Yeah, congratulations. It's very
Yeah.
very exciting.
Thank you so much.
And it's wonderful to hear that people are recognizing what you do and keep inviting you, because your willingness to keep sharing is making such a difference. It sounds like you've got a huge amount of ideas and a huge amount of projects that you're involved in. Can you imagine a future for your community where it is regenerated and it is prospering?
Yeah, if my community will be full committed with what I'm training them, I think, and I'm confident that they can transform their own lives and their livelihood. They can assist the nature balance and the nature to thrive itself, so that it can produce abundance for our food security, as well for fighting climate change in my community. Because what I want to see and what I wish to see um, is my community to be in a little situation whereby the coming generation can see that there is a change, and the change that has made has taken this community from one level to another, a good level to more better level from where it is now.
Yeah, I think that you're doing wonderful things, and I think that it must be starting to show results, because this is, like you've said, 2019 onwards. We're only talking a couple of years, but you're already making a huge difference, and people are seeing that that's the case, and you're being propelled into more and more directions. So it would be fantastic if you keep in touch and let us know how it's all going. It would be really, really interesting for us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm so happy for that.
That just all these new opportunities for you. It must be a lot to learn, a lot to take on, but very exciting. Well, thank you so much for sharing today. You've shared something very inspirational for people, and I think even outside of your own community, it's an inspiration for people to recognize that
that they can get involved, they can make a difference. And I think it's going to continue for you, because the more that people recognise and see and hear about what you're doing, the more people are going to be interested in sharing that. So all the very, very best for everything that you're doing.
Okay, thank you so much, Helen.
And thank you for listening to this episode of We Are Carbon. Next time, we'll be hearing from Christo Miliotis, doctor and soil scientist in Australia, who helps us to dive deeper into the life and interactions within the soil. Have you ever wondered how forests and woodland keep on thriving year after year without any added fertilisers? Perhaps not. But now that I've mentioned it, maybe it'll get you thinking. Christo has some great insights, so don't forget to subscribe to be notified when it's out. You can keep up to date with everything from We Are Carbon by signing up on the website or following along on Instagram. Search for wearecarbon.earth. And let's keep figuring this all out together.